Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from the great state of Oklahoma. Senator Mullen, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks for joining us again here on Breitbart News Saturday.
Matt, thanks for having me on, brother. Love your show.
Okay, lots to talk about here, but the big news this morning is that President Trump announced that he has succeeded, along with Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio, in negotiating an immediate ceasefire between the Pakistanis and the Indians, and this is going to open up broader negotiations. Your thoughts on the latest developments there?
Well, what's interesting is how quick they responded to this. You know, there's been tensions between India and Pakistan for quite some time, not to mention, keep in mind, they're both nuclear countries. So that tension can boil very quick, very fast. And to have an actual armed conflict between two nuclear countries isn't something that you want to take place, especially with as volatile as the world that Biden left us. What you saw was the Trump administration immediately take action in this. Rubio immediately went over there. Vice President was involved. The president was involved, and they were able to get cooler heads at a table and literally work through the night. And we were informed yesterday, Matt, that they were pretty close. I mean, really close to getting an immediate and complete ceasefire put in place. There's still some tension. There's always going to be a little tension right there. But the idea that they're not shooting at each other anymore and it beginning to escalate, because it goes from a tit for tat to escalation to troops, and then troops, you got a full-fledged war, and that can happen in a matter of 24 hours. In this case, because we have a strong leader in the White House, they were able to stop it before it started, which is why the President Trump always says that the war in Ukraine would have never taken place if he was in office. And we see why, because he was able to stop this from happening too.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that, by the way. And I think that, and by the way, earlier this week, I spoke with Steve Witkoff. We published a couple of pieces from that already. He's the president's top envoy to the Middle East, but he's also helping lead the negotiations between the Russians and the Ukrainians. And I'll tell you, I think the guy is very, very sharp, and we've got a lot more stories coming from that. And I think a lot of his he was very aggressively pushing back on his critics. But the big picture here, though, is that President Trump is the deal maker in chief, Senator, right? Like, so I think that you saw earlier this week, obviously, also the UK trade deal come out. Now you're seeing the peace deals getting negotiated. Other trade deals are expected on the way. President Trump is headed to the Middle East next week, to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE. I would expect that a big part of that is to focus on a lot of the peace negotiations, but also the economic and trade negotiations there, and trying to expand the Abraham Accords. Just your thoughts on the deal maker in chief that we've got right now. It really does seem like he is going out there and using the leverage of the United States in ways that we did not see the previous 4 years during the Biden administration.
Well, really, you can go back to the last 3 decades, 4 decades. I don't know how far you want to go back. We've never had a president be able to actually negotiate deals and have a backbone to actually structure it to where the United States is competing on a fair playing field again. As he said, and as all of us have said, I've said this before, President Nixon was the first one to really talk about the unfair trade deal. And since then, you've had Nixon, you've had Ford. You've had Jimmy Carter, you've had Bush, you've had Clinton, you've had Bush, and Obama. The only one that didn't talk about the unfair trade deal and the way that the United States is being taken advantage of was Biden. President Trump's the first one to actually step in and say, hold on, enough's enough. And he did it in a way that all his critics, especially the left media who lost their loving mind over it, he did it all at once. He didn't try to take one country on at a time, which a lot of his critics, who has been complacent in allowing this to take place over the decades. I mean, these established news outlets, these established reporters, these established politicians who want to criticize him, but they've literally allowed it to take place. What he did is he said, we're doing it all at once. And the reason why it was important to understand why he did the trade deals and the tariffs all at once was to quit playing whack-a-mole. Because if he would have done it one at a time, they would have just continued going around us, going to other countries. Like when you go after China, they'll just go into Brazil, or they go into Vietnam, or they'll go into Cambodia, or they're going to another country and get their products in the United States and just go around whatever deal we want. And then every time we do another one, they would just continue to do it. When he knocked them all down at once and is building the blocks back up, that's exactly how you build a solid building again. The foundation of the world's economy is the United States. We know that. Everybody else has built their economies on us since World War II, and they've continued to take advantage of us. We've lost thousands of jobs. We have lost trillions of dollars out of our economy. We have literally built China. We have rebuilt Europe. We have built Asia, from Japan to Vietnam to Cambodia. You name the country, South Korea, we built them through the dollars leaving America, going to their countries. And at the same time, we've grown $37 trillion in debt. So what President Trump decided to do is he's doing it all at once. And you're seeing it happen. You're seeing people come back to us. What President Trump knows is he knows the world's economy needs the United States a lot worse than we need them. They need to do trade business with us, like China. The reason why we know China is going to eventually have to come to the table is because 40% of all their manufacturing goods are sold to the United States. Now, just 10 years ago, 75% of it was, but because of their Belt and Road Initiative, where they've been bullying countries to do business with them, they diversified 35% of it. But still, yet you can't take it 45% yet. And these other countries are the same way. Their economies depend on us. The president made very clear, though, that he wanted UK to be the first in. He wanted to make the very first deal with UK. He did that, and now you're going to see other countries following quick. I mean, and it's not just about tariffs, and the president has made this very clear. It's not just about reciprocal tariffs where it's 1% for 1% or 10% for 10% or 0% to 0%. It's the barriers that keep us from entering into their country that they've got to get rid of too. And I use this one example, and I'll let you move the topics wherever you want to go after this. But we talk about Japan all the time. Japan sells thousands of vehicles over here every month, and yet they have 0% tariffs on U.S. manufacturing vehicles being sold in Japan, but we don't sell two a month over there, because the barriers they have for U.S. products, especially U.S. manufacturing products, to be sold in Japan makes it almost impossible for us to sell a U.S. vehicle. So the barriers are more important than actually the tariffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the tariffs are just a means to an end here. What he's trying to do is re-strengthen the American economy. So, Senator, I was over in Greece and I interviewed the Greek Prime Minister in mid-April, and right in the aftermath of Liberation Day. And I was there the day that the 90-day pause came on, and I was doing a bunch of panels at the Delphi Economic Forum, and I was explaining to people, I was like, this is like Donald Trump's, evil empire speech. Remember? Evil empire speech from Ronald Reagan against the Soviet Union, right? Like that's what this is that Trump's doing it in Trump's way to expose the Chinese Communist Party. And then lo and behold, what did the Chinese Communist Party do? You had the Chinese embassy here in Washington, D.C. Come right out and say they were spreading Mao propaganda. Mao killed more people than Stalin and Hitler combined. All right. Like, I mean, he's a terrible person, role model. And for them to start spreading Mao propaganda in response to it all, I think Trump is winning. He's exposed them as the aggressor, and he's rallied the whole world to the United States' side. And in the way that I explained it to people, I'm like, look, I was like, the U.S. has to be strong for the West to win. The Chinese, through the Belt and Road Initiative, as you mentioned, there have been spreading their malign influence across the planet. No, I mean, we're not at the point where we're calling for like regime change or something in China, but they need to stop spreading communism and the through this debt diplomacy worldwide, and they're hurting everybody around the world as they seek to strengthen themselves. And so the fact is that everybody from Europe to Latin America to Africa to Asia, everybody worldwide should be rooting for the U.S. to succeed here, because again, the shining city on a hill, if the U.S. succeeds, And President Trump pulls this off. And this is a big swing. I get it, right? Like I'm a Boston sports guy. I'm from originally from there. He's swinging not just over the monster. He's swinging for Boston Harbor. All right, like this is a big swing. I get it that President Trump is taking here with the trade stuff. But that being said,
Well,
he pulls this
Matt,
off. The U.S. is going to be in a way
let's
better
pull back
position.
let's pull back in 1 second and talk about what he's done to the Belt and Road Initiative, though. For your listeners, I know most of them are heavily informed, but let's just break it down for those that may not be.
Sure.
What is the Belt and Road Initiative? Understand exactly what China is trying to do there. They have a 100-year Belt and Road Initiative, and
Sure.
you got to understand the Chinese culture to actually understand what it means. So the road is the original thing where they want a road built around the United States where all economics, all the economy flows into China. You can't get
Yes.
on or off the road without going through China. That means they want the waterways. They want the manufacturing. They want the medical. They want the pharmaceutical. They want the military, and they want control of the currency. They want all shipping lanes, which is why the president has hit real hard on Panama. People are got to understand that. That's part of the Belt and Road Initiative. But what the president did is he not only did expose the road, but he exposed what China meant by the belt. See, in China, and the culture means two things with the belt. One, obviously, hold it up, hold it together. But two, it's a way to insult and inflict pain, because if you disrespect them, back in the old days, they would slap you across the face with their cloth belt, and that could almost be like a death sentence. And so when they slap you, that means they're going to tighten the belt and bring pain on top of you. When President Trump put in the tariffs, what they did is started putting pressure on other countries immediately and started saying, you've got to do business with us. What's interesting in this is the first country that actually balked and pushed back and actually kicked China out of the Belt and Road, like they decided to step out of the Belt and Road Initiative, was Italy. And when Italy did that, everybody looked up and said, hold on a sec, because what was happening is China was trying to go around us and strike a separate deal with China or with a European Union. And when it happened and they got pushed back and said, no, we're not doing business with us, all these other countries around Central and South America, around Asia, around Africa, started setting up and going, hold on a second, what is China trying to do here? And so they weren't prepared to tighten the belt just yet, but they were forced to because of what the President Trump did here. President Trump is the first one to actually talk about what China was trying to do with the Belt and Road Initiative, expose their hand and literally blow it up in President Xi's face. The people aren't talking about that enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Senator, we got to do, what we got to do? We got to get together and do like a big, like hour-long feature on the Belt and Road Initiative and what President Trump's doing to fight back against it. One of the other things that about this that I think is really important is, I don't know if you've been tracking this, but thanks to the work that President Trump did in his first term, and the career diplomats of the State Department continued it in the interim there during the Biden presidency. But Trump has picked up the football from here in the second term. And this is why, to bring us full circle here, what India is so important is what we're talking about here is an IMAC corridor. So for the first time, we have an offensive play that we can run against the Chinese, and it's called IMAC, it's a trade corridor from India through the Middle East, through Europe, through Cyprus and Greece. That's why I went to Greece, right? Like into Europe, Western Europe, and then over here to the United States. So it's our own version of it. And you have this is what the Prime Minister of Greece told me, is that it's literally the democracy-led answer to the communist ones, right? Like where you have the world's biggest democracy in India on one side, the world's most powerful democracy here in the United States on the other, birthplace of democracy, obviously Greece in the center that holds it all together. And we've never had anything like this. We could go out to countries and try to convince them to leave, like Italy, like Panama's doing, et cetera. We could play defense, but we could never play offense. And now we've got the offensive capabilities here. Once all of this bigger trade arrangement comes together, Now we've got the playbook. And that's why I think what the president's doing in the Middle East next week is going to be so important, because if the Saudis can join the Abraham Accords or something like it, I don't care if they call it the Abraham Accords or whatever, I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter. But they have to normalize relations with the Israelis. If we can get to that point, because the Israeli ports are a huge part of this, and the Saudis and the UAE are a huge part of this whole big picture of the world as we look at it like this. I think we have an opportunity to do some really historic things over the course of the next several years.
When the United States dropped the ball on the Pacific trade deal, we allowed China to just expand quickly. And people that understand history understand that the shipping lanes, the trade routes, have always made empires great. And when they lost the trade routes, when something would change, the empires a lot of times would fall. Now, the United States, we play politics while the rest of the world is playing football. I don't care if it's soccer or if it's actual American football, and we try to make plays based on 4 years of politics. That's where we have been getting constantly outflanked. And by restructuring what we're doing here, by making these trade deals, you can say trade deals or restructuring tariffs, but they're trade deals. By getting back control of the ports, by getting back control of the waterways, be it whichever canal you want to talk about, and taking it away from China, you are absolutely destroying them. But you're right. By having the largest democracy in India on one end and the United States on the other end, and then Greece, which, by the way, I'm so jealous you went there. It's one of my favorite countries to go to, my wife and I. People there actually love America and really appreciate what we did in World War II, and it's a beautiful country once you get out of Athens. It's amazing how fast. I mean, literally think about this. In less than 120 days, the president is already restructuring where the United States has been for decades. And the rest of the world is okay with it. In fact, they're craving it. They want leadership. And if he can normalize relationships between Saudi Arabia and Israel, huge step. People that doesn't understand the region and the influence or religious influences that's there, and be able to actually normalize with Saudi Arabia, which is a very important piece to the Muslim faith, to be able to normalize relationships with Israel, which is basically a sworn enemy. And that is historic to the point to where if it can happen, my grandchildren will read about it in history.
Yes. No, I couldn't agree more. And Senator, like I said, we're tight on time here today, so I can't go that much more deeper with you on this, but I really want to get together with you. We will figure out a time to do it, and we will do a big, major special on this, because I think this is everything. Geopolitical stuff is everything. But while I got you here, the last thing I gotta get an answer from you on where do we stand on the reconciliation plan? I know the House is trying to move through their stuff, and the media on Capitol Hill, all the pit vipers up there, they're all running around trying to, create infighting among Republicans. But where do we stand with regard to this? I talked to the Senate Majority Leader a little over a week ago. He was saying the goal is maybe we can get this thing done by July 4th and get it to the president's desk, which would be amazing to start the 250th year of our country that way. What say you? Where do we stand with regard to this stuff?
Well, to put a date on it's going to be difficult because things can move very, very quick. I hate to put a date, July 4th, but you almost have to, because Congress works better on deadlines than they do anything else. When we're forced to actually get something done, there isn't a day that goes by, even today, that the White House and both chambers are talking about reconciliation. We're still up in the air of what all can be done in the package, because we want to do a deficit reduction. So we're trying to cut at least $1.5 trillion out. At the same time, we're wanting to deliver what the president promised on his campaign: no tax on manufacturing tips, no tax on Social Security, and no tax on tips. And so if we can get that done, then that also comes with a cost, right? And then we want to make taxes permanent, not where they expire, but we want to use current policy to make taxes permanent. Then we got the DOGE cuts that come on top of that, which this is where we can do it, is through reconciliation. That there hasn't been another bill that we can do that in. Now, we can do it in FY 26 when we do appropriations, but really the reconciliation is where it needs to be done. So every day we feel like we've reshuffled the deck. I mean, I'm talking about every single day. We feel like the night before we have shuffled the deck and we're working towards a straight flush. And then when we get up about 10 o'clock in the morning and everybody's had time to think about it, we realize we're holding a pair of deuces again. And so I know we're going to eventually get the deck shuffled where we can be in a good place. I know we're going to deliver for the president because that's what the American people want, and that's why they elected the Republicans to run the government right now. But to say the time frame on it, I don't know. I hope we can deliver it faster than that, because what could happen, and I'll be quick here, is that the House can get a bill put to the floor, which Jason Smith from the chairman of Ways and Means is working on it every day. Morgan Guthrie is working on it for Energy and Commerce, because those are the two big committees in the House. And then us on the Propes and the Committees of Responsibility in the Senate's working on it. But if the House can deliver a bill, let's say before Memorial Day, just a framework, once the president really starts leaning in on the framework, things can move very, very quickly at that point. But we haven't got to the framework yet, and we're close. I mean, we're getting really close. So I'm getting excited about it. I think we can get it done before July 4th or on. But, it's hard to put a time frame on it.
Well, we'll be tracking it super closely. And Senator, really want to thank you for joining us, taking the time to explain all this stuff. And frankly, again, the geopolitical stuff, we really got to connect on that stuff more in depth, because we are very much on the same page.